Yeah, so the symbolism here with the ice and the snow and the hail, I wanted you to think about the pet goat video. And you see that, it's basically representing biblical symbolic events all the way down to the arrival of the Antichrist, but some people would say that it's the arrival of the Christ consciousness. Okay, but nonetheless, we're talking about biblically related events. And in throughout that whole scenario, what do you see? The land is covered by ice and snow. Ice and snow. And that's in relationship to the abyss. And it's in relationship to the geographical symbolicness of the abyss being at the North Pole, covered by ice and snow, covered by ice and snow. So when the abyss is released, it's going to destroy the spiritual fruiting. Okay, because you don't have spiritual fruits in winter. And that's what this winter is showing, that the spiritualness, the spiritual fruiting, the spiritual freedom that man has is about to be destroyed. And that's exactly the gist of the pet goat video, where everything is in this winter-like scene. It's the exact same symbolism that we see here in the book of Job, as it's connected to the abyss, which is now the judgment, which is shutting these beings up after line 7. There's been a rebellion after line 7. They've been shut up. There's been bars set. There's been doors set, and that they could go no further. And we see here that it even goes on to declare it as the springs, which is in relationship to Enki, Lord of the flowing waters, or the Apsu, or the abyss, Apollyon, the bottomless pit. Job gives us another description as this in connection with Leviathan, Job chapter 41, as the hoary deep, of which Leviathan comes from. So, or hast thou walked in search of the depth? It's all the same thing. In relationship, once again, to gates, doors, all in connection to this place of where they hail the shadow of death. Now there's much more to this location, both symbolic and literal, that they are. As I told you, there are two forms of beings that are being kept, or bound, if you will. One form is spiritual beings that are being kept in a repository of crystalline structure. And there's a lot that can be said of that, but just understand that's at least what the history reports, the book of Enoch and the such. Those beings are in spirit form. Now the other beings that are being held under there, that are being held by basically physics, by a seal, and you would represent that as the tetrahedron, the tetrahedral, or the Star of David, Solomon's seal, which is connected to what? Binding and loosing genies. In other words, these spirit fallen beings. So we see that's the connection where these beings are being held. They're being held in a heavily symbolized place of where they're being bound by these gates, by these doors, in this place known as the shadow of death. So as we move here, the symbolism for the place begins to give us the geographical location of it. It's timing it up with the hail and the snow. Well, as we move on down to verse 29, out of whose womb came the ice. Now that's the abyss is opening up. This symbolic ice, this hoary frost of heaven, which is going to stifle the spiritual fruiting of the world in full. Who hath gendered it? The waters are hid as with a stone. Now, I've reported already who that stone is. That stone is connected to Ephraim and Manasseh, which are depicted as the shepherds of Israel. They are usurpers that have come into the Bible in the book of Genesis that have been adopted into the 12 tribes of Israel. Actually, Jacob gives Ephraim the true name of Israel. So now this adopted born descendant from an Egyptian priestly royalty is leading the house of Israel. Here's where all the confusion in the Bible comes from, because nobody realizes that northern Israel has fallen unto the occult via the lineage of Ephraim that now begins to exalt its Egyptian heritage. So this connection is them hiding the deep as with a stone is going to be connected to Ephraim being termed as the stone of Israel. In other words, northern Israel. So now they're hiding the occultic location where they're getting their spiritual fruiting from. They're getting their spiritual fruiting from the occult, from the abyss, where these beings have been bound, where they've been using ritual, geometry, and channeling to contact them to get their information. Now, that's exactly where we move into in line 31. It begins to talk about the loosing and the binding of these very same beings that are given constellational star names: Pleiades, Orion, Mesroth, and Arcturus. It's no small accident these connect us to those very same alien names which are in question. Keep all this in mind. I'll come back and summarize.